Spain has a unique opportunity to become an economic rock star in Europe, the very savior of the European economy. If you thought its potential was limited to sun and beach tourism, well, you were very wrong. These days, this southern European country may be the key to boosting the industry of countries like Germany. How? Well, let's start at the beginning. Lately, there are many media outlets, analysts, and even YouTubers who point out that the Spanish economy is one of the strongest in the West. The most famous of them? The Economist's recent ranking.
The Economist places Spain as the best economy in the OECD in 2024.
Although it may all seem like excellent news, let's qualify this data. The Economist is wrong. Spain is not the best economy in the West, nor is it close to being so anytime soon. The Economist's ranking leaves much to be desired, without digging too deep. In 2022, this same ranking said that the best economy was that of Greece, and in 2023, it gave it the award again. What the Economist ranking does is reward economies that are growing, and obviously, the economies that are able to grow the most are the ones that start from the bottom. Spain has been performing abysmally for many years. Its economy has already been surpassed even by former communist satellites such as the Czech Republic and Slovenia. And the worst thing is that the pandemic has sunk its activity much lower than the European average. Spain has been a sick economy, and much of the blame has been laid at the feet of its nefarious politicians. A government composed of an openly communist party, its huge public debt, its skyrocketing housing prices, and business regulations that impede entrepreneurship. However, today we're not talking about how bad Spain is doing. As we said at the beginning, things may be about to change. Spain could become not only the new economic driver of Europe, but may hold the key to saving the industry of other countries like Germany. Why is that? European industry is in the doldrums. Germany is the prime example of the region's collapse. Once the factory of Europe, it is now in a crisis that, according to the Bundesbank, could last 10 years. Nevertheless, they say that life comes in cycles, and as the old powers falter, Spain could seize the opportunity, and indeed seems to be doing so.
The Spanish economy has once again surprised positively in 2024, and in fact, the CaixaBank research sector indicator shows an acceleration in activity towards rates of around 3% year-on-year in the final part of the year. The improvement is fairly generalized across sectors, but has been particularly significant in some manufacturing branches.
European factories need cheap and secure energy, and while it may be lacking in some areas, Spain has sun, wind, and enough space to build renewable infrastructure to supply the entire continent. As a European Union country, it is the perfect ally for supplying energy to its continental partners after the disengagement with Russia. This is very important for reducing the costs of European factories. But Spain also has one of the largest European reserves of minerals, such as copper, lithium, uranium, and coltan, crucial for the modern world. It has a highly qualified population, and has a foreign trade potential that could explode at any time. Visualeconomik community, Spain could become a lifeline for the European economy. It could be the champion of the next decade, capable of saving other countries like Germany. But how exactly could this come about? Let's take a look. The much-discussed Draghi report holds one of the key factors that could place Spain at the center of the European economy. What has been the most commented on in this report has been the regulatory problems of the European Union. However, there is another issue that has gone unnoticed: energy. Europe has always been an essentially industrial continent. German, French, and Austrian factories ran at full speed on coal, natural gas, and nuclear energy. However, all that is now a thing of the past. In contrast, the EU has severely punished fossil fuels with prohibitive taxes. And at the same time, countries such as Germany and Spain have adopted measures to curb nuclear energy. The result? These days, Europe's factories run on much more expensive electricity than those in China or the US.
For Draghi, one source of the recent stagnation of the European economy, and particularly of manufacturing, is high energy costs.
Even so, while the entire European industry has been suffering from increasingly expensive energy, Spain seems to be following a different trend. In just 5 years, Spaniards have gone from having the most expensive electricity of the major EU countries to having the cheapest of all. What's more, there's almost a 20% difference. As you can imagine, this has translated surprisingly well into their industry. In this graph, you can see how Spanish industrial sectors have grown according to their energy intensity. The most energy-dependent industries have skyrocketed their activity in a fierce way, while the non-energy dependent ones have decreased. In other words, a significant chunk of the Spanish economy is growing thanks to its relatively cheap electricity. Do you want some examples? Well, take the case case of the chemical industry. Spain is very competitive in manufacturing chemicals of all kinds, such as refined products and pharmaceuticals. Its star company is Grifols, which produces approximately 30% of the world's production of immunoglobulin, used in operations such as blood transfusions. The question is, how is Spain managing to control the price of electricity better than other countries like Germany? Take a look.
Spain leads the ranking of the highest penetration of solar photovoltaic energy in the world.
Renewables are the key, and so is being less tied to Russian gas. The important thing, Visualeconomik community, the crucial aspect of this entire video, is that Spain's energy capacity could be large enough to supply all of Europe. Spain could become a huge territory dedicated to harvesting sunlight and wind in order to feed the industry of the rest of the European countries. What's more, it would be a reliable and peaceful partner, like a more friendly and eco-sustainable version of Russia. But what if I were to tell you that this is not all? What if I were to tell you that Spain could also be crucial in the trade war against China? If I ask you about European countries with a large automotive industry, apart from Germany, you will most likely think of France or Italy. But the truth is that Spain is much more important.
In 2023, Spain manufactured more than 2.45 million vehicles and was the second largest producer in Europe. In addition, it is the first European producer of commercial vehicles, the second largest producer of passenger cars, and the fourth largest producer of components.
Spain is the number 2 European power in terms of vehicle manufacturing. And take note, because it's tremendously productive. Each worker produces an average of 15.5 vehicles per year, a figure that is 3 times the EU average. The real productivity of the sector is 19.5%, higher than that of the economy as a whole, so it's no joke. But the best thing is that its production is highly oriented to foreign markets. 9 out of every 10 vehicles manufactured in Spain are exported. In other words, it's a very lucrative business for the country. So what's the problem? The problem is that the European automotive industry is going from bad to worse, and Spain is no exception. While it's true that after the pandemic the sector did rebound a little, it has basically gone down again without ever having recovered to its pre-pandemic levels. And who is to blame for this setback? China. Chinese electric car brands are eating up the European market. Producing in China is much cheaper. Firstly, because they have lower energy costs. Secondly, because they have more experience with electric cars. And thirdly, because they have better controlled supply chains. This supply chain issue means that China is not only capable of producing the cheapest cars, but also has access to essential minerals such as lithium, has production plants for batteries, microchips, and in general, everything necessary for obtaining its vital components. Something in which Europe falls far behind. In fact, we recently learned that one of the largest European battery manufacturing projects has gone bankrupt.
Sweden's Northvolt files for bankruptcy in blow to Europe's EV ambitions.
Recently, the union has proposed to impose high tariffs on China in order to curb competition. And you will surely think that Spain, being the second largest producer, will be one of the most interested in punishing Xi Jinping, right? Well, nothing of the sort.
Sanchez assures that the EU must reconsider the tariffs on Chinese electrical products.
Surprise, the Spanish president is against tariffs on China. How is this possible? Well, the media have said that China buys a lot of meat from Spain, and that if Europe imposes tariffs, China will retaliate with new tariffs that would affect products such as Spanish meat. However, the real motive appears to be much less clear. It may have come as a surprise to many of you that Spain is the second largest car manufacturing power in Europe, and that is probably because Spain does not mainly produce its own vehicles, but is a major producer of foreign brands such as Volkswagen, Renault, Stellantis, and Nissan. Why is this so? Well, because Spain was always a very poor country in Europe, and as it had cheap labor, the big European countries sent their factories there to save costs. This is why most of the cars manufactured by Spaniards are of medium and low ranges, that is, mass-produced and for the middle class. And what does all this have to do with China? Well, just as Germany and France sent Volkswagen and Renault factories to Spain, now it could be China that sets up its factories in Spain. In other words, if you can't beat your enemy, join him. Spain could betray the rest of the European countries and become the Trojan horse by producing the electric cars of Chinese brands in its territory. For this very reason, Pedro Sanchez would be vetoing the tariffs. Spain could become an economic engine, albeit at the cost of sacrificing the rest of the European countries. However, this idea could end up having more problems than benefits. If China is known for anything, it's for its constant political ups and downs. You can never trust the Communist Party. Yes, Spain could manufacture Chinese cars, but that would make it highly dependent on the Asian giant. As we have said, China's great advantage is its control over the supply chain. That means that Spain would need to continuously buy Chinese batteries and parts to maintain its business.
The battery value chain is highly dependent on raw materials and components from other regions, particularly China, whose companies supply more than 70% of the world's lithium-ion battery cells.
And given the situation with Russia, is it really a good idea to be so dependent on a potentially hostile country? There's no mathematical answer, but it is certainly something to take into account, especially in a multipolar world where the US, which, let's remember, continues to be a great ally of Europe and a major buyer of its products, could face off against Spain in the event of doing big business with China. And this brings us to a question. Does Spain really need China? I mean, couldn't Spain start developing electric vehicles on its own, or do it hand in hand with big European companies like Volkswagen? Because think about it, if there is a surplus of anything in Europe, it is funding for green projects. And it's quite possible that the Union will start investing heavily in technological and industrial projects. If we link this with the country's energy potential, with its cheap and qualified labor force, and its strong experience in the motor industry, couldn't Spain, without China, become an electric vehicle superpower in factories, not only for its own cars, but for German and French brands in the electric car market? The answer is yes.
Spain, the European key to defeating China.
We've said that China is putting Europe to shame for 3 reasons: supply chain, expertise, and cheap energy. We've already explained that Spain can get cheap energy. As for experience, that can always be fixed with sufficient investment. Science, a field where Europe is not doing too badly either, and with the expertise of other French or German companies that have been accumulating over the years. But what about the supply chain? Well, this is where the interesting part comes in. Spain is one of the European countries with more usable natural resources for the construction of batteries and electronic components. It is thought that it has the 4th largest lithium reserves in Europe, a large production of copper, zinc, cobalt. It even has lots of uranium. On top of that, the country has a good level of education, with one of the highest rates of university graduates in Europe, capable of accompanying the extractive industry and of designing both technologies and companies that accompany it in the rest of the production chain. The opportunities are there, so what's the problem? Take a look.
6,000 people take to the streets in Cáceres against the lithium mine.
Spain is a country with a no-to-everything culture. That is, Spaniards don't tolerate unknown economic activity or anything that has some disadvantages. This is something we see with tourism. Many Spaniards are against tourists, but we also see it in cases such as lithium mines, oil extraction, because yes, Spain has oil and does not extract it due to political pressure, and we even see it with much less problematic installations such as renewable energies.
Massive march to denounce the speculative installation of renewable energy projects in Granada.
Spain is an expert in wasting golden opportunities, and here I'm not even talking about politicians, I'm talking about its own citizens. As we've seen in this video, wind and solar energy is key to both Spanish and European industry. The country could be the continent's largest energy producer, but every time they try to install a wind farm, thousands of people protest, saying that the turbines damage the landscape, not to mention the fact that politicians demand endless environmental impact reports which, at the end of the day, prevent the development of renewable energies. Of course, let's not talk about nuclear power either. Its expansion has been completely banned since the 1980s. In fact, in Spain, entire nuclear power plants were built, such as the one in Lemoniz, which, although completed, were never put into operation due to the political and social pressure. But that's not all. For Spain to be the energy and industrial driver of Europe, it's going to need one thing: infrastructure. High voltage lines to send electricity to other countries, large electrified vehicle factories, and even new railways. And there again, we come up against the culture of saying no to everything.
Demonstration in Granada against high voltage pylons in the Alpujarra and Valle de Lecran.
Spain has many possibilities. It has a historic opportunity to grow economically and, at the same time, to save the rest of Europe. But will it seize the opportunity? Here we have many more doubts. Neither society nor politics seems ready to turn the page and accept the costs of economic growth. For its part, the socialist and business-unfriendly government doesn't do much to favour investors either. Without going any further, on the news, politicians demonize day in and day out the electric companies that would be fundamental for starting this whole industrial revolution.
Yolanda Diaz, Vice President of Spain, lashes out against the exorbitant profits of electricity companies. The time has come, they have to pay.
And of course, let's not mention the fact that taxes are getting higher and higher, that regulations are among the worst in the European Union, the public debt, or the thousands of problems that the Spanish economy has. However, that's a topic for another video. Now, what do you think? Do you think Spain will be able to take advantage of its opportunity to be the energy and industrial engine of Europe? Will it end up making a deal with China? Or will regulations and citizens simply prevent any business opportunities in these sectors? You can leave me your answers in the comments, and as always, don't forget that here on Visualeconomik, we release new videos every week, so subscribe to this channel, hit that little bell so you don't miss any of our updates. If you like the video, go ahead and like it, and I'll see you in the next one. All the best. See you next time.